All right, so welcome to the foolproof presentation formula part 3. Um, it's actually part 4, but our first part was a little bit different in terms of it was specific to one-time offers. So today we're going to talk about the formula again. We talked about it in detail in part 2 of the training. I just want to review it really fast and then go through some case study notes to share with you and some tips and tricks that are a result of all of the speaking and presenting and webinars and things I've done over time. Um, so if you don't recall, the structure is basically very similar to a sales letter. So you want to have your first slide or your intro to be kind of your headline equivalent, right? So it should be something very catchy. If you're not sure what that needs to be, you should go back through the part 2 of the training. Um, then you go through the personal story and introduction. So you never want to talk about yourself first. Nobody cares about you until you've actually got something interesting to say. So, and then after that, part 3 is to have a cliffhanger. So a reason for people to stick around, or what we refer to as, this organic effect. Then you kind of get in the classic copywriting state of problem, agitate, solve. So here's the problem. I'm overweight, everybody's overweight. And the agitate would be something like, and you're going to have a heart attack and die. But the solution is, eat less and exercise. And then, the solve is kind of the hard way. And then your transition to that is, but I found out that I didn't have enough time to work out. And I didn't know how to eat right, so I came up with this magic pill. And then your 3-step close, which is here's what I got. I got the magic pill. Here's what it'll do for you. You lose 10 pounds in 10 seconds. Here's what you need to do next, which is order, right? So that's the basic structure of that conversation. And it works for webinars. It works for webinars, video sales letters, and live presentations. What you'll find, though, is that structure largely depends on the audience and what you're selling, or if you're selling anything at all. And knowing the audience is a big part of that. So, I had mentioned before we started into this training to some folks that, copywriting and advertising copy is a big issue out there. And one of the reasons that is the case is because people don't really know their client avatar. In other words, they can't tell you what the client avatar is thinking at night, what's keeping them up. They don't know how old they are, what kind of shoes they wear, what kind of car they drive. The only time people really know the client avatar is if they were once that person, which is why it's so much easier to market a product that you created to solve a problem you had yourself. And if that's not the case, or if you've evolved past that point and you now forget where you came from, which happens to some of us, you really need to understand your client avatar. There's descriptions and worksheets out there. We covered that in our lead generation courses and workshops, how to find that avatar, both in terms of online research as well as a Q&A, a sheet you can fill out, a cheat sheet for your avatar. I can't emphasize this enough. Knowing your avatar is the difference between success and failure when you're selling stuff online. If you don't truly know your avatar, you will fail. And you'll think it's not your fault. You'll think, oh, this ad doesn't work, or Facebook doesn't work, or whatever you're doing. No, that's not the problem. The problem is you don't really know your customer. So when you're doing webinars or live presentations, polling your audience is a really great way to find out their knowledge level. It's a little bit tougher to do in webinars. I don't tend to do that with webinars. What I tend to do is try to speak to that avatar, speak to the target customer, and not worry about the rest of the participants, right? But in a live environment, you have this great advantage of being able to ask them. So if you're standing up on the stage or in front of a room of 15 people, whatever the scenario is, and you say, let's just say that you're going to talk about weight loss as your topic. You just simply ask a question: how many of you have tried a diet and failed? And pretty much everybody should raise their hand at that point. And then the next question might be, how many of you are still trying to lose weight today? So now you have an idea of how many people are interested in what you have to offer, how many people have tried a diet and failed. The other thing you can do is survey your audience before and after. This works well for webinars. So like GoToWebinar, that thing you signed up, you used to sign up for this series, they have an ability in there for you to add additional questions when people register. And then when they're finished, you can just send people an email and say, here's the, tell me what happened after the fact. And you can match that data up. Now, you typically are better off on the after part having some sort of bribe in place, but that's going to help you understand and evolve your presentation. And then a really, really big one is giving people a reason to listen. Okay. On webinars, it's a great idea to have interactive documents, so things that they're filling out and following along with, or live demonstrations. Also keeping pace and flow. So in other words, don't spend too much time on one topic, don't stall, keep your pace up, and then flow between your slides or flow between your topics smoothly. And a lot of that comes back to having done it more than once, you know? So if it's the first time presenting a piece of information, pace and flow is probably not going to be there, but it's something you need to work on. On live events, you can do giveaway items, right? You see this all the time. You get a piece of mail. It says, come to our real estate workshop and get an iPad or an iPod or whatever. In live events, participation and interaction is huge. If you ever have to speak in front of a group and you're nervous, this is my biggest tip for you, which is, I told you this just the last slide. Ask some questions. So before you do anything, just ask the audience a couple questions. That'll help you relax a little bit, because then you'll feel a little bit more like you're interactive instead of you're just being analyzed. And then if you can, add some fun and comedy. I wouldn't say I'm the best at that, but occasionally it happens by accident. And when it does, your people tend to have fun and pay more attention. Okay, so let's go through some of the a little bit more detailed version of the reasons to listen. So you can see something there on the screen, right? And when you see it, you probably think, oh, what's that all about? That invokes a little bit of curiosity. Um, it's a mind map, and it's a mind map for a sales funnel. And so one of the tips I gave you was to have an interactive document. So what I could do if I was going to present that material to you is I could send you that. Or I could show you this screen, and then I could send you one with blanks in it that you have to fill out, right? With PowerPoint, and I believe also with Keynote, you have the ability to print them out where it puts the slide to the right and then shows notes to the left. So that's one thing you can do. You can give them the worksheet without the answers. So remember I was saying here about this mind map in front of you. We could make each one of those items blanked out in the handout, and then they would have to fill it out as they followed along. For live demonstrations, it's great if you can show product proof or results, right? So if I was going to show you some new YouTube ranking tool or something, I would go on there and actually take this piece of software, walk through it, and show you how you could get results. That might be a real-time demonstration, or that might be a screenshot style demonstration. We all like that, right? Or just a features demonstration, which is, look at this cool piece of software I have. If you push this button, then this is what happens. If you push this other button, then that's what happens. And then you, as the viewer, can come to conclusions on your own as to what the benefits of that are. Obviously, knowing that that piece of software solves a problem for your audience is going to help you quite a bit. And then on the pace and flow side of things, just move slightly faster than what you think you need to do. So keep your conversation moving quickly, and don't spend too much time thinking out loud. And then have no delays and smooth transitions from one slide to the next. So on live presentations, you want to give people reasons to listen as well, but you have an advantage when you're speaking live. I know for the majority of the public, this is something that makes them extremely nervous. I put up a couple pictures here to show, some events where I spoke, and I did some different things in each of those events to keep people's attention. In both cases, I had giveaway items. In the top one there, I was at the local marketing summit that Mario and Brian put on in Vegas, I think it was. And what I did was I didn't give them something for showing up, which you can do. You can give people stuff for showing up. But I gave them gave away stuff for participating. When I spoke at Epic Traffic Systems down there at the bottom, this was like 2010 or something. I told everybody that they were going to get a free piece of software from me, just for taking the time to be there and listen to my presentation. And everybody was excited about that, obviously. On the local marketing summit, what I gave away was money, and I had a little icon in the top of the slide or the bottom. I don't remember exactly which. And what it was an indication that I was going to ask a question about a topic I covered in the previous few slides. And I think I set it up so it's like every 15 slides or approximately 15 minutes, I would give away a $20 bill. So I just went to the ATM machine, got out $100, and then I gave away a $20 bill at the beginning to condition the audience, and then at each of those points on the slide. So obviously that doesn't work all the time. It's not a good idea necessarily, but in this case, I was selling something, and so I knew that I would get at least a portion, if not all, of that money back. It was an investment. The audience survey thing, which I told you about, the interactive rewards, which is I just gave you a great example of, that was done at the local marketing summit. And then, of course, fun and comedy. Actually, I didn't intend to be funny at the Epic Traffic one, but it was the first time I had flown to Atlanta, and their airport's really weird. They have this little like train thing on the far right side, and then this long hallway you walk through, and if you've never been there before, you don't know that it's backwards. So you start at the letter A and it ends at the letter Z or something, and the letter Z is where the cabs are and stuff. And so when I got off my plane, I was at letter B, and I saw the sign that says this way to the cabs, and I thought, oh, cool, I'm really close, or I was at letter C. I just got B and A to go to, right? It makes sense. And that was the other way around. And so I walked forever and ever and ever. And then the numbers jumped around. And I told this story, and everybody who was in Atlanta, most of them had flown in. And when I told the story, they all laughed because they felt the same way. The other thing is, and this is something you'll learn as well, is that if it's self-deprecating, in other words, if you tell people a story about a mistake that you made, it just makes you more likable and more human. You're not standing up there on stage like, oh, I'm this all-knowing, all-seeing being that you aren't. You make yourself more relatable. That's the same reason people like jokes. People love to laugh, and if you have that skill, then you're ahead of the game. Dan Kinney actually wrote a book about it, Make Them Laugh and Take Their Money. And he tells you that he scripts all his jokes and he tests them and he uses the same ones. He basically has a list of specific jokes he tells when he speaks. Okay, so let's talk about some closing techniques, and then I'm going to talk about closing technique failures. Okay, so when I have given live presentations and you're trying to get them to take action, there's a couple things you can do. The one I told you about at the Epic Traffic thing was I gave away a piece of software. What happened though is when they registered the software, right, I got their name and email address. It's software's called Local Niche Spy. You've probably heard of it or have it. The other closing technique is the qualified buyer technique, which is what I used at the marketing summit, which is I did kind of an application approach because I had been told, and you'll learn this as well if you ever present live, if you're selling something from the stage, usually, unless you're the first one to go on, usually the other presenters or the people hosting will tell you, how it's going. And what I was told is that, nobody's really sold anything over a certain price point. And so what I did is fill out this application and, pay a refundable deposit of $99, but then also tell them, what the total price is and that they have a chance to talk to you. So you can do this kind of qualification type deal or a free trial type deal. So $7 today and $100 tomorrow kind of a thing. If you ever speak at like a chamber of commerce or a local event or an industry where they don't let you sell stuff, then you can do the big ticket drawing, which is the way you give away a product or a service for them filling out a form. And on that form, you're gathering data. Like, let's say you're speaking to attorneys and you want to sell them all websites. Then you'd ask them questions like, do you currently have a website? What is the URL? How many employees do you have? What are you doing for marketing? And then your giveaway would be a free website, right? And then the other thing that's really common, a little bit overdone, but works, is you offer them a checklist that solves a problem that's created during your presentation, or just giving them copies of your slide deck. That's probably the most common one. People give out their email address at the end. I'll send you the slide deck, and which means they'll just give you the slides from the presentation. A couple things that I've done that have failed, and this is probably the most important thing for you to take note of, because it's not the stuff that works that's terribly important, it's the failures. And failing is how we learn, and failing is how you figure out what works. And so this is important for you to understand. Probably the biggest one is offer confusion. So I did a presentation, a couple of times I've made this mistake, and I don't know why I continue to make it, but just sometimes you just do, is where I did the big ticket giveaway and tried to sell something at the same time. And what happens is one takes away from the other. You should only have one call to action. This is true of even on your landing pages. You'll see, if you guys ever look at a landing page, and sometimes they're selling something or asking you to opt in, and then on the right hand side there's a whole nother opt-in box or something. You don't want to do that. That creates confusion. People don't know what to do. The second one on here is I call detailed distortion, which means that you talk at too technical of a level. Does that make sense? So let's say you're selling software. If you go and deep dive into, let's say I was selling Microsoft Excel to business owners. If I start telling them how to do macros and formulas and database connections, then they're going to feel like it's not going to work for them because it's too techy, right? So you got to be careful how much information you share. And part of what helps you there on live presentations is doing that survey I told you about. And then the final thing is having an underpowered offer. So in other words, at the very end, you say, okay, great. If you'd like to talk to me, give me your business card at the back of the room. Don't do that. Do something really strong and really powerful. If you want a strong response, have a strong offer. Come to the back of the room and I'll give you $10,000 and, my car. I don't know, but make it strong. We talked about some of that in some of the previous slides. All right, so for webinars, so a lot of you probably care more about webinars than you do live events. Here's some closing techniques that have worked. The one I've done quite frequently is the software giveaway. So hang out on this webinar, and at the end I'll give you a free copy of software. If you don't have the software, you can do checklists, you can do free access to a membership, you can do something else, but give them a reason to stay. On the webinar closing techniques, you can do the qualified buyer, which is fill out the application for $1, and then if you're qualified or take the free trial, then you'll be charged 30 days later, that kind of thing, because then it makes it, you're reducing the resistance. And then you can also do the big ticket giveaway on the webinar. So I said, just like the live event, you can say, hey, I will give you a free funnel analysis. I'll tell you why your landing page isn't working and what you can do to generate more leads for your business. Just fill out this form over here, and then one of you who fill this out will get a done for you solution or something. Some things that have failed in webinars, and this is important. If you have an assumptive offer, in other words, if you think that people automatically know what the benefits are of your product or service because it seems obvious to you, you're going to fail. And one way to find out, so here's the secret to finding out if you're making this mistake. Show it to someone who knows nothing about what you do. Show them your offer, walk through it on a dry run, or record it and send it to somebody. And if they have questions that you need to answer, then the chances are you've left something out. I talked about this actually in the last, part 2 of our training, but detailed versus summary. So you should actually have a detail of everything people get one by one. First you get this item, and then this item, and then this item, and this item. And then at the end, you should also have a summary of all the items. You can also do a bridge page rather than an order page. It kind of does the same thing. So if your call to action on the webinar is go here and sign up for the free course or whatever the case may be, the bridge page could be essentially a description of all the things they get and then a price at the bottom. or you send them straight to the order page because you've done such a great job of detailing everything out that all you're going to do is have them fill out the credit card. There are different schools of thought on which one's best. The answer there is to just try both and see what works. On webinars, unlike live presentations, you don't have a captive audience, so it's a really good idea to follow up. So follow-up failure is another reason. So you all have, I'm sure, experienced the webinar replay, email announcements, and so on and so forth. The reason you get so many emails about, the next webinar and the follow-up is because people are distracted and busy, and if you don't follow up significant, a lot, then you're basically losing sales. And then finally, when you're in a digital environment like we are right now, like there's no reason for you to stay here. You could just leave right now. You could just turn your computer off. So you need to give people a strong reason to act right now. And that actually kind of applies even to live events, but they need to know why they have to buy it now and why they can't buy it in the future or think about it later. This is the whole car salesman thing where they take your keys and stuff. The reason is because as soon as you leave the car lot, they know that you're not coming back. Because life's going to get in the way. So if you really want the sale, then you have to give people a strong reason to act right now. So it could be they'll lose a bonus if they go away, or it could be that the price is going to increase or whatever. Just don't make it fake, make it real, and give people a reason to take action right away. All right, so here's a little summary, and then if you have questions, I'll take questions. So the summary is know your audience, know your avatar, give them a reason to listen, and give them a reason to stay. Okay. I can't tell you how important it is to know your avatar, know your audience, know who your perfect customer is. Really, 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 really know them. If you don't know them and you think you do, you're gonna waste a lot of money. You're gonna lose money. You're gonna spend, if you've been in internet marketing or you've been doing marketing for more than 3 years and you're still struggling to make sales, that's probably the problem. Which means you don't really know the avatar and then you don't know how to write copy to get their attention. Also, mistakes are good. So learn from your mistakes, adapt, and forgive yourself. Mistakes are nothing more than split testing. You're just testing one idea and seeing if it works, and if it doesn't, you move on. Make a note of it. Don't, get down on yourself. Everybody makes mistakes, and that's the difference between people that are successful and those who aren't. People who are successful are willing to make mistakes and learn from them. And then use a system or develop your own. So you can use my formula or you can create your own or you can use someone else's. But the bottom line is you have to have a system. Every salesman or every engineer or every public speaker, it doesn't matter what it is, they follow a formula. When you build a car, you don't just randomly throw parts together, right? Or your house or whatever. Everything is done in a systematic fashion. That includes selling on the phone, selling on a webinar, whatever. And if you're not doing it in a systematic way, what happens is you can't repeat it if you were successful, and you can't fix it if you failed because you're not doing it in a consistent manner. I can't tell you how many times I have to explain that to my clients. I have clients who are in the marketing business, and I look at some of the things that they're doing and they don't have a documented telephone script or they don't have a system for measuring things or whatever the case may be. And it just baffles me. And I point it out to them. They're like, yeah, but I don't need that. And I'm like, no, you need it and you got to have it. And that's the only way you'll get better is if you're following a set of steps, a process. So anyway. Oh, so Richard, so we'll take some questions here. Richard says, what's the flowchart software you're using, the mind map software? That screenshot I showed you was a free software called Xmind. And actually, I think on my YouTube channel, I have a presentation where I show you how to use it to create documentation and stuff. That might be one of the ones that I'll cover in the future. It's extremely powerful. If you're a visual person like I am, or even if you're just someone who likes to have checklists, you can essentially create your own checklist by going through and creating a mind map. It's also a great way to create documentation for clients or software or whatever. I'll probably do a class on that as well. So better make a note of that because we'll do some sales copy, copywriting stuff next week. And then after that, I'm going to probably get into business systems, like how to manage your business and so on and so on and so forth. Yeah, xmind.net. William just posted that. It's a great tool. Any other questions about presenting? How many of you have done webinars? Just quick, I'll do the whole survey thing here now. Who here has done a webinar themselves, either for a client or for Richard hasn't. Allison has. William has. Great. Awesome. So hopefully you use a system for that. Richard says he set them up for other people. Well, so I think I mentioned this before, but even if you're not doing this stuff for yourself, knowing these steps can help you help others. So if you're in the consulting business, knowing all the steps I just shared with you will help you improve your clients' sales process. Waldo says, preparing to do webinars, I've done a dry run. Awesome. So the secret to success in business is, right, speed gets paid. So do it now, do it fast, go out there, get it done, and do it wrong, and then go do it better and better and better each time thereafter, right? So go out and fail, fall off your bike, get back up, ride again, that kind of thing. Any other questions? Thanks for sharing that, by the way, guys and gals, about your webinar stuff. Webinar Jam, yeah, that's the one that's it's actually Hangouts, right? Cool. Well, thanks for taking some time to be here. I'll post this as soon as I can. It should be up no later than Friday midday, and then I'll send out the announcement about our next week webinar, our webinar next week, Monday-ish. And we'll talk about sales copy. And so what I might do is I'll do like an overview of building your sales funnel. And this includes if you're doing webinars. So this might be a good logical transition, which is how do you drive people to a webinar page and then get them to sign up? How do you make sure the webinar sign up page converts? And then same thing with like landing pages for lead gen or list building or whatever. What's good copywriting and steps to follow there. So we'll go through that next week, and then maybe what we'll do on the week after is just do some volunteered analysis. So in other words, I'll critique your landing page and your sales funnel and give you some feedback on that if you have one up. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you next Thursday. Thanks again for coming out to play, and we'll talk to you then.